You are listening to the Certified Humane Podcast. Here you will stay up to date on the best practices of farm animal welfare from interviews with professionals and companies that work in the field. You can also follow these interviews on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Certified Humane. Stay tuned and well informed.
Olá, você está ouvindo o podcast Certified Humane. Aqui você vai ficar por dentro das melhores práticas de bem-estar para animais de produção a partir de entrevistas com profissionais e empresas que atuam na área. Você também pode acompanhar as entrevistas em nosso canal no youtube.com/Certified Humane. Continue conosco e fique bem informado. Este episódio foi produzido em inglês. Você pode assistir a entrevista pelo YouTube com legendas em português.
Hola, usted está escuchando el podcast Certified Humane. Aquí le contaremos las novedades de cuáles son las mejores prácticas de bienestar para los animales de producción. Compartiremos entrevistas con profesionales y empresas que trabajan en el sector. También podrá seguir estas entrevistas en nuestro canal youtube.com/Certified Humane. Acompáñenos y manténgase bien informado. Este episodio fue producido en inglés. Puede ver la entrevista en YouTube con subtítulos en español.
Hello, my name is Luis Mazon. I am the director of the Humane Farm Animal Care, in charge of the Certified Humane projects in developing countries. Today, they're mostly located in Latin America and Asia, in countries such as Brazil, China, India, Mexico, Chile, Malaysia, or Singapore. With this podcast, we're launching a new channel for the promotion and dissemination of information and practical experiences on farm animal welfare. So for this episode, we'll have a chat with Global Food Partners, a multinational consulting firm based in Singapore, but with activities in several Asian countries. They work with food and hospitality businesses in the transition to a more responsible food supply chain, more specifically promoting cage-free and free-range eggs consumption and production. I'll let them explain it better later on. Our guests are Dawn Neo, Senior Manager for Corporate Engagement, and Lisa Qing Yang, China Program Manager. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thank you for inviting us, Luis. It's an honor to be here. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you, Luis.
Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Great. Okay, so before we start, let me tell the people who are listening to us a little bit about the story, how we met. It's been quite a while already. So since many years ago, since I started actually with Certified Humane, we have always worked closely with other nonprofit organizations that work for the same purpose, which is to improve the lives of farm animals. So Humane Society International is like an old partner of ours because they have offices mostly, all over the world, basically. And they have a very strong work of promoting cage-free production. So we've been working in developing countries in many events together. HSI calls us for lectures to explain about certification. And we did a lot in Latin America, in several countries. And in 2018, we started in Asia. There was first event in Surabaya. I think it was in October of 2018. And Dawn was there as the main contact person in Asia for Humane Society. Right, Dawn? What was your position at Humane Society International at that time?
So I was focusing on corporate outreach for Asia, for a few countries here in Asia with Humane Society International at that time, because a lot of companies have commitments. So suppliers needing technical support, and that led to technical workshops being held in Surabaya in 2018. And then in 2019 in Bangkok as well.
Well, before the event in Surabaya, actually, we've been in touch, Dawn, because we wanted already to start our operations in Asia. So Dawn did a great job in finding 3 potential candidates, which today are our clients, which was Choose Agriculture from Singapore, Lianqi Farming from Malaysia, and Totisan Farm. The 2 first were egg producers, and Totisan is a chicken producer. And this, so that you can see how old is our story with Humane Society International, that then went further now with the work of Global Food Partners on moving ahead. So Now let me give the word to you, Dawn, to let you explain then what is Global Food Partners exactly. What's your objective as a company, and what was the story? A little bit of what I told, but you have more details, of course.
Yeah. You like what you say. I think I was glad that it was good timing, really, that Certified Humane came into Asia at that time where the farmers were interested in certification, and this topic has become more and more relevant here in this region because farmers were interested. And also through our work, we realized that there's a lot more technical support needed for farmers and for the industry in order for them to implement their policies and to transition to higher animal welfare practices. And that's one of the reasons why Global Food Partners was set up, to really focus on Asia, to build capacity in this region, to help the industry transition. Because my colleagues and I, we have worked in different regions of the world, whether it's Europe or Latin America or North America or
India,
Asia or India, South Asia. And we have seen that in some regions like US and Europe, transition has been a lot smoother. Companies have been able to implement their responsible sourcing policies and cage-free egg commitments. But in Asia, there's a lot more, they need a lot more help. And so with this kind of feedback in mind, I think some of my colleagues set up Global Food Partners to really focus on the challenging markets here in Asia where companies and producers are needing more support. For example, some producers will be saying, we see the demand that companies are telling us they need the eggs, but they may not necessarily know how to do it. Sometimes they will Google for information on how to produce cage-free eggs, because these are producers that have been producing eggs from using battery cage systems for decades. And they may not access the knowledge available in their native language.
Sure.
They may have information in English and local language support was needed. So that's one of the reasons why this was set up. And also because besides that, there are other challenges in the industry like logistics and infrastructure, and there are a lot more innovative tools necessary. And Global Food Partners wanted to bring innovative tools and innovative solutions to the industry to really help them make a successful transition and have sustainable and still profitable businesses in implementing these policies. So that was the genesis.
Actually, I think with Humane Society International, you guys were able to do like the first step. But then there was like some more needed, because you have to really to help the companies to really do the transition and really take them by their hands and teach them how to do the free range production, the cage-free production. And also Asia, I mean, there has a huge potential due to the huge size of the population and also the wealth of the market, the huge size of the food market. But also, Dawn, what are the countries that you act? What's Global Food Partners region?
So slightly backtracking a little bit, I think HSI work was great, and we just think that there are many more pairs of hands needed in this region, a lot more countries to cover. And with Global Food Partners, we focus right now on 8 countries here in Asia. So we're headquartered in Singapore because a lot of multinational regional headquarters are based here. But we operate in Southeast Asia, we operate in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines. And in East Asia, we operate in China, Japan, South Korea. So these are the main countries.
India, no.
India, my colleague Jasima can still help companies with India as well, but these 8 countries are our main focal countries.
I see.
With other countries, we are able to support as well, but maybe not in a hands-on way.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so we cannot ignore the relevance of China, right, in the regional scenario. I mean, even the global scenario for food supply.
China alone is huge.
So Lisa, you have a huge job ahead. Tell us a little bit about your role in China and what's like your day-to-day. I mean, what do you really do, and how is this challenge of being, I mean, you're alone in China, right, as Global Food Partner, or you have some other person based in China too?
Yeah, I have another colleague who is also based in China. Okay. So I have 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So my job is not so big now.
Shared.
Yeah. So yeah, my role at Global Food Partners is a China program manager, as you mentioned, Louise. And here, on a practical note, my daily job is to provide technical support, like on-site technical support for the producers to support them to adopt cage-free systems. So of course, I'm not alone, although physically I'm alone in China, but GFP has a quite a strong technical team together. So through online consulting meetings and also written documents, we have a quite a robust technical background there. And I will be the one getting on the farms, visit the farms, and provide training for the producers to support them to convert to transition to cage-free systems.
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's my,
so it's more like
my main, responsibility here.
It's more like on the technical side then for the farmers, not like a corporate engagement with big buyers, right? More on the production side.
Yeah, I think Dawn is very capable. I think she covered the whole Asian region.
Yeah.
That's not true. I work with my colleagues on focus on corporate engagement. I work with my colleagues on that. But we are hiring somebody else for China as well. Somebody to focus
on part of corporate engagement then.
Yeah. Our team is slowly expanding and growing. That's right. But my work from day to day, I focus mainly on working corporations that have policies or are adopting policies and helping them really implement in these countries. And I support in some of the producer work as well, but then my work is mainly on corporates.
Okay. So before going further on the activities of Global Food Partners, let's talk a little bit about the egg market, the different realities that we see in the egg market in the region. I mean,
so Asia is a very large continent and a very diverse situation here. A lot of countries. On one end of the spectrum, you have countries that produce a lot of eggs, like Indonesia, 7th largest egg producing country in the world. Wow. But in terms of egg consumption, they are one of the lowest in the world. Their egg consumption per capita per year is less than 50 eggs per person per year.
Okay.
Each person in Indonesia on average don't eat more than 50 eggs a year. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you have countries like China. A huge change has happened in the last 20 years. Like before 1980, much of the egg production across the world was happening in Europe. But now over the last 20 years, the demand and consumption in Asia has just increased, more than 280 eggs a year per capita in China. But then if you go across to Japan, you have one of the world's third largest, I think world's third highest egg consumption happens in Japan. They eat about 337, if I'm not wrong, 337 eggs per year, almost on par with Mexico. On average, each person will eat about 2 eggs a day. So a very diverse region, a lot of eggs being produced. Some of the world's most largest egg producing countries happen here in Asia. So a lot of work.
But mostly with caged production, or do you see some cage-free systems like in some specific countries?
Most of the production here are still in battery cages. And enriched cages are still fairly new here. Cage-free is a relatively new topic. Traditionally, there are some free range production happening, but then most of it will be in battery cages. In some countries that we work in, up to 99% of current production still coming from battery cages. But there are a few large producers starting to produce cage-free eggs and starting to grow that segment of their market. So it's an encouraging sign. Like big producers like PP
big
Foods
potential.
In Thailand, they had a successful pilot and they have ramping up their production. In Thailand right now, the government has issued a set of new standards for cage-free production.
I was going to talk about it later. This is a unique situation, an excellent situation that the government came first and defined criteria for cage-free production.
Yeah, and if they put it together so quickly, like when I first started working on this issue a few years ago, I didn't foresee that Thailand would move so quickly, and that the industry here in this region, some countries will move so quickly, and that Thailand will have a standard already, pushed out within like 2 years. Within 2 years, I think that's a very encouraging sign.
The Asians move fast.
Yeah, it's moving a lot quicker than expected. Even previously, when I was working with HSI, the amount of number of meetings that I was getting was unexpectedly high, and the level of interest in this region is definitely more than expected. So it's a good sign.
Good. And then Lisa, I remember once I was in China, and then I saw something that surprised me in a supermarket, which was like this big shelf with fresh eggs. I mean, without not packed, just all there, just ready to be cracked and in an omelette, So that's you see, it's a challenge on traceability, because how can you know from where is that egg coming from? What was the origin? What was the system adopted to produce those eggs? So traceability, let's say, is a challenge in China, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think, Ruiz, you just identified one of the major challenges here, like in Chinese, the egg production in the industry, because right now we haven't have very well recognized like system in the market to differentiate caged eggs or cage-free eggs or free-range eggs. So the market right now looks a little bit messy. So everyone can claim that their eggs are from this system or that system, but it's very hard for the Chinese consumers to know exactly where they come from. Yeah. And also branded eggs is still a very small percentage here, like in China. Only those really large integrated companies, they have quite well established like a system to brand their eggs. So for medium-sized farms or even smaller ones, they don't have like a branded eggs, and their fresh eggs just sent to the farmers markets and being sold, without any traceability.
Yeah, that's a challenge because the traceability actually is the guarantee that you have that the egg really came from where it's supposed to come, which is like a sustainable origin, right? Anyway.
And
and
we see that same challenge in other countries here in Asia, because a lot of people still buy eggs from the wet market, the street market.
Okay.
So in countries like Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, majority of eggs are not sold through large supermarkets. People mostly shop at wet market. So traceability is a challenge, not just in China, but in a lot of countries.
Yes. And then now talking about the big buyers that you were quite used to deal with, Don, when you were at HSI. I mean, you as a corporate engagement manager, how do you see the reality today of the big buyers of eggs? Are they looking for cage-free eggs? Are they pushing the market? Tell us a little bit about their role in this shift of the egg reality.
I think they are key in this whole conversation, because producers, they are the ones with the volume to shift the production pattern that we are seeing. And with the consolidated volume of all these large buyers with their commitments, and all of them, most of them have a timeline of 2025. By 2025, 100% of the eggs that they buy needs to be cage-free. And when producers hear that message, they start to pay attention to that. And that's why it managed to shift some of the larger producers in this region, like Bounty Fresh in the Philippines, Pumon in South Korea, even some producers in China are very interested in this conversation because of the buyers.
Of course.
So nobody wants to be left behind. People want to future-proof their businesses. So they are key in doing this.
Sorry to interrupt, but just to complement, do you think this is a result of pressure from their head offices abroad, or things that they see abroad? or is something that is coming from the actual consumer demand, local consumer demand for like a more sustainable product?
So in the beginning, when I started working in this region, the companies that I work with tend to be multinational companies with headquarters in Europe or US or some other countries. And the Asian offices are getting the directives from their headquarters to start implementing these policies. But now more and more in these past few years, we're seeing more and more Asian companies committing. And some of them we have been in conversation with for a number of years. So even very large Asian companies like Minor Hotels, Minor Food, announced commitment in the past year. So even during the pandemic, you have hospitality companies, restaurant chains making commitments. So more and more you see Asian companies starting to commit. I think it's moving a lot quicker than anybody expected, really.
Nice. Yeah.
So there is some interest, and in terms of the demand from the end consumer, I would say it's still a niche topic for a lot of end consumers, like going to the market to buy eggs, But then in those markets that are more mature, like Singapore and Hong Kong, you do have consumers that are a lot more aware, and generally consumers are concerned and aware about these issues. And some of them will actually ask questions. And with clients that we work with, even clients that have operations in Indonesia and Philippines, they're saying that consumers are starting to write to them and call them, ask them more questions about where their food comes from. So as the economies in this region slowly develop and people become more educated and people have more access to the internet,
Exactly.
it's very natural for them to ask more questions. And it's a good sign that we're seeing more of that in countries like Indonesia and Vietnam and Philippines, countries with young, big populations.
Now, going a little bit back to global food partners again, difficult question. What are being the major challenges that you see in the region and then later on in China, like Lisa? Major challenges for global food partners today, let's say, because I know you have lots of things to do and steps to achieve and objectives, but let's say currently, what are being the major challenges?
So I think our role is really to build capacity in this region to support the companies in implementing these policies and also support the producers.
I mean, help the farmers to produce correctly, you mean then? Is on the supply side?
Help the farmers access the knowledge and really have practical hands-on training on how to produce the systems and understand what does good look like. Because I think one of the key challenges that we've been facing is languages, because it's a big region. So a lot of information needs to be in native language. If it's an Indonesian farmer, most of them would prefer to have information available in English. So the instruction and all the communication has to be in that language.
Yeah, this actually our egg laying hen standard is already published in Mandarin, in Vietnamese, and it's about to be published also in Bahasa Indonesia. So, and also that's why we always want to have local inspectors so that they know the local language too. So I agree 100% with you on this language issue.
So you totally understand what I'm talking about. So a lot of our time is spent on translation and making sure that the technical terms are correct, because sometimes we work with translators that translate across different sectors. So we need to send these materials to technical specialists in order to make sure that it is technically correct. And if you go to Japan, everything has to be in Japanese, and it's just a sign of respect that it has to be in their local language. In Thailand, most of the farmers, maybe the boss may speak English to you, but when you come down to training the people on the ground, working on the farms, it has to be in Thai. Or if they come from Myanmar, then it has to be in their language, So a lot of these times, even in Malaysia, a lot of workers come from other countries. They may or may not be Malaysian. So instruction needs to be in their language. And so in terms of capacity building, that's one of the key challenges that we as an organization deal with from day to day, working across so many countries. Time zone isn't a challenge, language is a challenge. And also right now with COVID, the COVID pandemic, not being able to travel, not being able to really be on the farm to help them. I mean, Lisa being in China is an exception because she recently went to farms, hands-on, and provided hands-on support. But then in countries where we're not able to travel, we have to quickly pivot to virtual medium and be able to provide the instruction remotely and virtually, and think of different ways to still support the industry in this time. Unfortunately, this pandemic happened in a time where we have the technology to do so. If this happened in the 1980s without Zoom, without virtual reality, it'll be a bit tough for you and me, right? Yeah.
What about you, Lisa, in China? How do you see the major challenges at the moment for you?
Yeah, I think my challenge mainly comes from my work on the farm with the producers, because cage-free systems like especially like the indoor cage-free systems, like aviary system, is still very, very new here in China. And a lot of producers, they even don't know there is such a system like aviary or multi-tier.
They are open to learn more, they are eager to learn more, or they're like, oh, there comes this lady again wanting me to produce cage-free. Oh my God, or what do they are?
No, they are always like very welcoming. It's a little bit strange for them to know that there is a company and some people working on this issue. They didn't realize that, but then realize, oh, I actually can get support from a group of experts on this system. So that's good. But after the first round of knowing each other, we come to the hard reality. That is, it takes time for them to be familiar with the new system.
Yeah,
and because the system they're most familiar with.
Yeah, and then I have to change. I see.
Yeah, their whole life was with it has been with the cage systems. And so cage-free systems, it's easier to manage, requires less managed time and the labor and all the other technical requirements. So for them, they compare cage-free system management to the cage system. So they found, oh, I need to put so much time into this. I need to inspect like my shed frequently. I need to maintain my litter. I need to watch the birds for their, behaviors to know if the flock got some problems. So for that, we need a transition of the mentality. That's what you do for your cage-free flock. And because this is the beginning, they sometimes don't really know what they're expecting, like for running the cage-free systems. So sometimes they also got a little bit like frustrated because it is a learning process, new knowledge. Yeah, it is a learning process. And also, I think if we look at the examples from other countries, it always like with time going, they know the system better, and they can lower the cost of production. So it will get better. But because this is the beginning, so we all need to be patient.
Yes. And well, we know even in our business, in the certification business, one of the major challenges for all farms that look for certification is training, is actually keeping all the employees trained as like an ongoing training, and really understanding like minimum requirements of animal welfare, look at the hen and knowing if the bird is showing strange behavior that needs help, the basic management, how to do a good rearing to have a good laying phase, what kind of formula is more effective the feed formula, what are the resources that the birds need. They need perches, they need substrate in their nesting boxes. There are so many things they have to learn. So training is really key. So Dawn, let me ask you about the training centers of Global Food Partners. I know that you have recently, I think you have just launched one in Indonesia. Tell me a little bit about it. Is it just Indonesia, or also we're going to have in China?
We're going to have two for a start. The one in Indonesia, we just signed the MOU to start building it last week. So it is with the University of Gajah Mada, based in Java, the island of Java in Indonesia. and is one of the largest agricultural universities in Indonesia. And this will be a training center as well as a model farm. So it'd be useful for producers in this region to see what does good look like. Because a lot of them, when you Google for cage-free systems, you may come across systems that are more relevant to Europe or US. But we need a model that is possible and possible for best practices for the producers here. Because a lot of producers in Indonesia at the moment, they are still operating with very small flock size on very small scale production. So they need maybe they may not be able to transition to an aviary system that maybe a Japanese producer can afford or
system,
yeah, but they may be able to have an automated nest box and systems like that. So this training center will not just be for producers, it will also be for veterinarians, for the industry, and it will also be a research center in collaboration with the university to do relevant research that is that helps the industry in this region.
Interesting. And then the other one is going to be?
The one in China is going to be partnered with the China Agricultural University. I think Lisa knows more about that one. Lisa, would you chime in on that?
Sure. Yeah, we want to set up a similar model farm and training center here in China, like we did in Indonesia. Right now, it is still at a very early stage. We've been talking to some universities, but we haven't moved to the final stage of negotiation yet, but we're working towards that. Our goal is to have one launched at the end of this year. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, we're hoping that this center will be up by the end of this year. But in the meantime, we're supporting producers virtually through other means and through a virtual training program. But the centers will be up. And the key thing about this center is that it's not, even though it's physically in China and in Indonesia, it's not just for these two countries. It's going to be for producers based in this whole region. So, for example, the center in Indonesia will be able to provide instruction in different languages.
Oh, good.
So maybe for a few months in Bahasa Indonesia, for a few months in Thai, if there's demand, for a few months in other languages. So producers can fly into these centers even though they're based elsewhere.
Yeah, excellent.
So that's the main purpose. Yeah.
Now,
and through working with a university, we're able to provide some kind of certification for the trainees, for them to complete the course and to have a proper diploma or certificate so that they're employable at the farms.
Okay. And I'll talk about certification. Don, how do you see our presence in Asia now? I mean, we are on our early stages, right? Also trying to understand the market, try to make ourselves known in the farmers community. I mean, how do you see the presence of Certified Humane in the region?
I think it's a good thing that Certified Humane has started your activities 2 years ago. The first farm was certified in 2019. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good thing that you have inspectors already in a few countries here and you're able to certify, and there are farmers interested. So, and it's a good thing that you are have partners in China and a lot of potential. The key thing is to get the farmers interested in getting certified. Yeah. And be motivated to get certified, because the buyers have to be asking for certification. If the consumers are not asking for certification, then farmers may not feel motivated.
Yeah, so I think that in the beginning, sometimes the push comes from the big buyers, like big companies that are committing to buy only cage-free. They really need to make sure, and they are not really willing to have an internal team of people going and inspecting companies, and they don't even have the knowledge. So certification like ours for this kind of objective fits like a glove, you know. So
yeah, and a lot of companies
the final consumer will start asking. Like we see a few countries, maybe Singapore, for example, some countries are more prepared in terms of final consumer to start valuing certified humane label. Otherwise, it's more on the big buyer in the beginning, in these early phases.
I see more and more visibility, like in the supermarkets here, the largest supermarket chain here. Now we see the Certified Humane logo on eggs. And recently, I think our largest supermarket chains started to have their house brand eggs procured from a certified humane farm. So we see their logo on the house brand eggs as well. So it's a good thing. It's very prominent in the supermarket.
The podcast, I think it was very interesting. Now we know how huge is the job of promoting the cage-free production in Asia, and we're together in it. So once again, thanks for accepting my invitation, and see you next time.
Thank you very much, Luis, for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Luis.
Okay.
I'll speak to you next time.